All right, we are back, Muyax.
Absolutely, we're back, and we're back talking about something that is of absolute importance to us as Kenyans. For many years, there have been a lot of efforts to legalize or perhaps protect NG-CDF. But with the expiry date quickly approaching, those efforts are becoming a lot more coordinated, a lot stronger. And a lot of people are asking questions about this. But tonight we're here to shed light on this very critical issue. Why is this happening? Why now? Of what benefit will this program be for Kenyans? And what will be the alternative should it be taken away? We want to give you a bit of a scene setter for starters, just before we get into our conversation and with our guests. Please take it away.
All right, and of course, you would definitely want to argue that from 2003, is it 2003, 2023, 2003, up until now, the CDF has been in existence. And the question is, just how friendly has it been for you and me? So we want to just make sure that this conversation gets to the level of the people. Today, we do not have members of parliament, but at least we have what it is that they have said. We have
their bosses.
Yes.
We have their bosses.
That's the thing. And so the bosses are going to tell us whether we scrap it off in totality, or we keep it and take it to the level of the counties, or we keep it and have the members of parliament still, consider this as their kitty, in as much as they say that they are not the ones who actually manage these funds. On a set, Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch, as well as Peter Simba, our Kili, as well as Jerika Higa, National Youth Leader. We also have Tinega Damzen, Director, Youth Empowerment Solutions, and we also have James Bulamba on the other end. Gentlemen, we also have one more gentleman who's going to tell us what his name is the moment they actually get the conch. But like you say, we have a pace setter.
We do.
Okay.
Of course, as this debate surrounding the proposed scrapping of the NG-CDF gains momentum, many Kenyans have voiced strong opposition to this move. They argue that this fund has been a significant contributor to development projects at the grassroots level. Our reporter Robert Gakure reports on a piece that talks about how residents would feel if the NG-CDF would be eliminated. Let's have a look.
The Constituency Development Fund was established in the year 2003 following the passage of the CDF Act by the 9th Parliament. The initiative was championed by Muriuki Karue, then MP for Olkalau constituency, through a private member's bill aimed at boosting grassroots development.
Kama kuna pesa ambayo ilitolewa kwa serikali wakati wa Kibaki na ile mjadala ilipelekwa kwa bunge na Muriuki Karue, then MP wakati huo, kama kuna pesa inaonekana mashinani ni ya CDF. Residents point to key infrastructure improvements made possible by the NG-CDF, including upgraded road networks and the modernization of public schools.
Kwa miaka 2 iliyopita, hiyo shule kupitia kwa mbunge Dede Nyoro kumefanywa miradi ya milioni 100, kuwekwa kabro, kuwekwa ukuta na miradi mingine inaendelea kama kujengwa kwa shule.
Wakuje hapa Kiharo waone hiyo pesa vile ambavyo inafanya kazi na ambavyo inasaidia huku kwetu Kiharo.
They also highlight the importance of bursary allocations, noting that many bright but financially disadvantaged students depend on these funds to access and complete their education.
CDF ilikuja kitambo na kuna zile miradi tumeona zikifanyika. Sana ile inapenya sana kwa watu ni ile miradi inafanywa na CDF.
Leaders including Kiharo MP Dede Nyoro and Kangema MP Peter Kihungi have defended the fund, emphasizing its vital role in addressing local needs and driving equitable development.
NG-CDF handles functions that are national government functions. It is closer to the people when there is a devolved fund from the national government like NG-CDF, kwa sababu inaleta service ambayo national government ingepeana karibu na wadosi wa Kenya ambao ni wananchi wa Kenya.
All Kenyans have agreed that CDF is really working, and members of parliament were removed from the system of CDF. It is run by NG-CDF board, and it's one of the best systems that is working and is delivering to our people, mostly on bursaries and development of infrastructure in primary and secondary schools.
If this proposal is passed, what remains is the implications this may have to the community development in Kenya. Robert Gakure, TV47, Murang'a.
And of course, that sets us to the conversation straight to it. Neston Joseph is the other gentleman, youth leader. Asanteni sana, lady and gentlemen, for creating time. Muyakani.
Thank you. Neston, how are the people of Riruta?
Doing very well. Quite fine. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Now, gentlemen and lady, I want us to start with basics, with just foundations. For those who are wondering, what's the big deal about the NG-CDF, the fund that the senators want, alongside the national, the Affirmative Action Fund? Nelson, I'll come to you in a second. But Mr. Osido, paint the picture for us as to how we got to this place that we find ourselves in.
Okay, so thank you so much for the invitation and for this very important conversation. How we got here is basically the history of the Republic of Kenya insofar as governance, leadership, and development is concerned. And you realize that way before even devolution, way before decentralized form of government, we used to have something called the, it was called District Focus for Rural Development. So it was a mechanism that was put in place, particularly by the Bretton Woods institutions, insofar as how the management of locally generated resources by the government would be used, and also grants or loans that were given to Kenyans. And so moving that forward is the manner in which the citizens were organized, so much such that fast forward to local governments, then Kenyans were put into a mechanism where we had an opportunity to as well generate our own priorities through what was called LASDAP, Local Authority Service Delivery Action Plan, where citizens within a locality, initially they were actually called local governments, so areas within a council where we had people called councillors or kanjula from, Vitu background.
Right.
And so this was an opportunity for people to feel that aspect of development. But you realize that this was largely managed by the central government, as it were. And so there are still areas that could not really benefit from what government had either planned or resources that were appropriated or located for development programs. Now, moving forward to the clamor of the new constitution, way from 2005, but even before then, parliamentarians, and your colleague has actually given us a very good story from the former MP of Olkalau, Engineer Muriuki, who moved a bill in parliament and said, for us to ensure that development is passed across the country, we need a tool, we need a mechanism that would therefore be able to allow members of parliament, because initially MPs or constituencies were really the unit of development. And so through that mechanism, they said, okay, let's give constituencies monies, which would then be used by the MPs. Those days, we never used to have very strong conversations around separation of power, around the role of parliament or other parliamentarian, and of course, looking at now what the local governments were doing. So the CDF Act of 2003 was then put to the fore to be able to ensure that there is development taking place, equalization, and of course the fact that Kenyans would then have an opportunity also to make decisions in terms of prioritizing their needs by creating projects or programs of development. But you realize that upon the promulgation of the new constitution in 2010, then we had devolved governments. So we have 48 governments, 47 county governments, and 1 government. But then, if you look at various institutions of government, where we are now talking about the 3 arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and indeed the, of course, the judiciary. To be able, and each of them, the 3 have very clear-cut roles. But now, moving this so that we can move into the conversation of CDF is a question around what the High Court has said against the different transitions of CDF. The CDF that we're talking about, despite the fact that other schools of thought are saying is a CDF of 2013, the CDF Act has been amended close to, I think, 7 to 11 times. Now, the amendments really border on a number of issues insofar as members of parliament, particularly the National Assembly members, are concerned, which is one, separation of powers, that you cannot be the one who appropriates these resources or monies, and then you want to exercise the responsibility of oversight in terms of how this money is being used. But then number 2, is a judicious management of these resources, that we have institutions of government that therefore also exercise auditing, like the Office of the Auditor General, that will go out and look at if it is programs that have been put, the projects that have been built. They will go there and ask people, where are the bill of quantities, how much money was used, can we see the documentation, and all that. And then lastly is, of course, the functions. Schedule 4 of the Constitution of Kenya determines what national government is supposed to do and what county governments are supposed to do, which is really where, in my view, the biggest battle and conflict is. Because insofar as we are talking about, I've had people saying, let's take these responsibilities to the county governments. To be honest with you, there is no mechanism for county governments to be able to exercise functions that have been given to NG-CDF. Now, remember that again, we are talking about not just CDF, but is NG, which is National Government Constituency Development Fund, which means, therefore, as I finish, that this is meant for functions that are only supposed to be exercised by the national government and not county government.
Not the county government.
And as we proceed on, then we'll be able to clarify
absolutely
really what that means.
I would like to come back to you to unpack that in a moment. But I have a question for Mr. Simba. Look, this thing has been declared unconstitutional many times before. So, in your view, this new amendment, is it a legal cure or a political workaround?
Thank you so much for inviting us to this show. Allow me to just commend my co-panelists for the good elaboration and history of NG-CDF. But most importantly is petition number 178 of 2016. Now, when you look at the decision, it was very clear that the NG-CDF Act of 2016, as amended in 2023, was declared unconstitutional in the Wanjiru, Gikonyo, and Opot case. So as we talk, the NG-CDF as it is, the whole act plus the amendments has been declared unconstitutional. And it has been declared unconstitutional for 3 key reasons. One is the overstretch of the separation of power. Number 2, on aspects of infringing the devolution as enshrined in the Constitution. And number 3 is the prudent use of finance or of the funds that are collected from the public or the citizen through taxation. Now, when you look at Article 10 of the Constitution, it provides for the national values. And one of those principles is the prudent or sustainable development. In the current dispensation, there is an overlap, there is duplicity, in that the functions of the national government and the functions of the county government have been all put together in the NG-CDF Act. A classic example is when we talk about emergency fund. There is an emergency fund that is unallocated, actually 5% in the impugned NG-CDF Act. And when you look at the same, there's a similar fund at the county emergency fund as well as the national contingency fund. So all these funds, they perform the same function, so that when there is an emergency, all these actors will come to respond to the same emergency with lots of money, but divided and cut in different pieces so that you cannot easily realize its function. So that is what the High Court tells us, and actually rightfully put it, that for the prudent use of finances, let the functions of the county remain the functions of the county, let those of the national government remain the functions of the national government as enshrined under Schedule 4 of the Constitution. The other thing is the separation of power.
Hold on a second. Just on the subject of what you're calling duplication of efforts. If as a layman, help us understand, and I would like the others to jump in on this as well. If the Mwananchi is the recipient, the national government does some things, the county government does some things, and the national government, through the MPs and the CDF, the NG-CDF, they do some things, and the affirmative action does some things, and this new proposed Senate fund also does some things. Wouldn't someone argue that the Mwananchi is a beneficiary here? What would you say to that? As you answer that, I would like some of the other guys to jump in as well.
Thank you so much. And before I answer that, let me put it very clear that the High Court decision is not against development. It's against the administration of the NG-CDF, such that you cannot be a player, a coach, and a referee. That is actually what NG-CDF provides for.
Fair enough.
Now, look at this. You have 3 or 4 different funds performing the same functions. And these funds are directed to one person, to the exclusion of the rest. So let's say Osido gets the NG-CDF bursary. Osido gets the governor's bursary. Osido gets the president's bursary. You see, it's the same fund that if it were collected and put in one consolidated fund, then it could even fund the free primary education. But because of the let me not say the greed of politicians, but because the politicians normally want to use public funds as political weapons to whip on the emotions of voters, that's why they divide it. And when they divide it in so many sects, it does not perform that which it's supposed to perform rightly. Instead, it can easily be plundered and misappropriated.
All right, hold on to that. Mr. Damason, what's your view on this? Because you're on the ground, you actually work with communities. Talk to us about what you've seen in your work.
Thank you for inviting us on this very important. Thank you for inviting on this very important discussion. Number one, what I'm seeing, or what I've been seeing on the ground, is duplication of functions in this fund. The architecture of this fund, actually, let me get it back. We borrowed this one from India. India is very well working on this, and the function of after coming to Kenya, it went to Ghana, and if you visit Ghana today, the CDF is working very well. The only difference that we are seeing here, we are forgetting. Our member of parliament are doing this as what we call political. They are doing it slavery to the people.
What do you mean by that?
This is what I mean. The funds that are going to be used, the CDF itself is Community Constituency Development Fund. So the word development is cutting across. But now when it comes to the so-called bursary, it is now what we call something that if you want to catch a hen, you throw some maize. So those people
it's
who
like
are...
bait.
Yes, it's a bait. So that's why they are fighting day and night to make sure that they are controlling that fund. That's why you're seeing MPs, when it started, it was for the MPs. It came to the president. It came for governor. Now the MCA are looking into it that for us to be elected, we need something that will make it as a bait for the people. But now let's get back on the allocation of these resources called the education fund. How much do they allocate for our education? If you look at it clearly, we are spending about, it is in billions. If I may be corrected by this small phone of mine, let me get back to use an example here. We have over 12 billion that is catering for primary education. Per child, we have over 22,000 shillings that is allocated for each and every child in this republic to cater for the school fees or tuition fee. There is feeding fee, there is, call them. All these are catered for education, starting from the scratch to the last. Now you come again and find the MP has money to pay or to cater for bursary, to cater for education. MCA has the same money, another money that is going, president has the same. You see, we are abusing our money. We are abusing taxpayers' money.
Is this really the case? Because I'm struggling to understand this.
Yes.
Is the concern that the members of parliament are handling these monies, or that there is duplication, and that, of course, these monies are not supposed to be given to maybe a certain constituency or something? Because you see, reality is that we still talk about a scenario where education is underfunded in the country. We still talk about students down on ground saying that we have not received bursaries and they're not going to school. We still are talking about scenarios where even with these monies that are at the level of the counties, there are schools that are struggling to get, infrastructure. So when we are talking about, that this money is there and, the MCA is handling money and so and so and so, what exactly are we saying? Because
the problem,
education is underfunded.
This is the problem. When you have too much players on one thing,
okay,
you will miss the focus.
So one player would be the best deal, you think?
We need to have one key player that is handling this. Either they scrap all this CDF or so-called bursaries thing, they remain the CDF that is development on other aspects.
And I think I want to bring up what it is that Wakili had mentioned, that perhaps, perhaps if this money is going to be taken away from the kitty of the members of parliament, then it would actually, be money that can be used to fund free education. 2003, and we're talking about Kibaki, who was on board in 2002. And then the CDF has been in existence all this time. Did we halt it at some point in time so that the free education can be handled? Or what exactly played out? Maybe the best person to respond to that would be Kevin.
But just a minute.
We want to loop in. Allow us. We will come back to
just a minute before I forget. That's why I mentioned this one. We borrowed it from India.
Okay.
So if we can go back and see the practice of this, whatever we borrowed, how is happening, or how is working in India, and how it is basically the people who borrowed with us, the Ghanaians, how it is working, then you will see where we are missing it. Thank you.
Nelson had been given the mic earlier on and then it was taken away from him. Nelson, you can say something small before we get to hear what Njeri has to say as well as
Actually, he's a politician.
He is,
in Riruta.
He probably wants to be a member of parliament.
Indeed. In fact, Mr. Damason here and Mr. Simba here are saying that politicians are trying to secure their influence while pretending to pursue development. How do you respond to that as a politician yourself?
All right. Not really a politician yet, but you guys give me the chance. You'll definitely see it. I'm probably a very literal person and very direct. I mean, in the year 2022, 2023, we had about 3.18 billion shillings underutilized. And I saw you guys brought Ndindi Nyoro there, who's doing very well. Their constituencies are doing fairly well when it comes to the fund. But then, what about constituencies like, what do you call it, Kuria East, who have not used their funds well? So I'm just like, this particular MP...
Is that based on facts? Are you from
absolutely.
there? Are you from there?
No, absolutely.
They're
actually,
you also want to be so sure, because aside from the report, do you come from there?
No, not really. But in the report, they had stated constituencies that did not use this particular funds. My question is, these MPs, one, you'd not see them in parliament debating issues. But then when it comes to CDF, they're running to their constituents, they want to distribute funds. What is the fuss about this fund? Then it means even when the High Court was ruling against this particular fund, there's a problem with it. Then we need to check and analyze what is this fund about that everybody is fighting about. Because if we can be able to say now, the 2003, when we were taking the CDF, the biggest issue was we want to be able to go to grassroots development. We want the common mwananchi, the last person who sits in the village, can be able to get some development. We have counties. We have ward representatives. Where should this fund be placed in a constituency? Those people should now be let to be able to now be in a capacity to just now say, this is what we want to oversight this, we want to oversight this. But when it comes to, the chickiness, or when it comes to CDF, I think we should be able to tore down on that a bit.
Well, of course, they say it's the only reason they want this fund to stand is because it gives them political mileage, because they do not manage the funds.
But what political mileage?
All right, we will come back to that. Jerry,
Good question.
Hold your pace.
We're coming back in a second. Let's take a few messages. When we come back, we'll speak to Mr. Mulamba, and we'll speak to, I see you're ready. You've got your points. I can see you're ready. We'll come back to you, as well as the rest of the room. Okay. We'll be right back.